Welcome everyone who's joining. I can see people are starting to trickle in, so I'll give it a minute before we get started. Please introduce yourself in the chat. Hi. We'll just give it another minute or so, give everyone a chance to log in. All right, let's make a start. Thank you so much to everyone for coming along and choosing to spend a sunny lunchtime on a Friday talking about marketing with us. This is our first event in a brand new virtual community for marketers of all levels, all backgrounds, all industries who are looking to upskill and progress in their careers. A couple of bits of housekeeping before we get started. This session is being recorded so that we can share it with anyone who was unable to make it. At the bottom of the screen, you will also see a Q&A button. During any of the talks today, please do submit any questions that you might have. Get involved. We've got plenty of time to get through as many questions as possible. Plus, if you're using either LinkedIn or Twitter during today's event, please do share your highlights or any other questions maybe after the event with us using #marketingtalk. So if we just jump into the next slide. So my name's Catherine and I will be your host today. So a little bit about me. I'm head of marketing at a very exciting insurtech called Insure, based in Brighton. And we're one of the fastest growing insurtechs in Europe and New York. And it's a really exciting place to work. Previously, I was head of marketing at another startup. I was there for about 4 years and originally joined as a marketing executive. In my decade or so in marketing, I've been lucky enough to experience B2B, B2C, startup and scale up brands as well as big companies. So quite a broad range of experience in marketing, and I just love it. My progression journey and the brilliant people that I've worked with along the way was a big part of the inspiration to actually start the Marketing Talk community. So on the next slide, we'll have a bit more about what Marketing Talk is all about. So Marketing Talk is a community that is especially for marketers who are looking to upskill and develop. As I mentioned, the brilliant and inspiring people that I've been able to work with have been a huge influence on my career. So I wanted to find a way for more marketers to be able to connect with people like that. We will help you fill your toolkit with all the personal and professional skills that you need through regular events and connections within this community. At future events as well, I hope that we'll be able to run some breakout sessions where people can get together and meet other members of the community and safely share a problem or a campaign or a tactic that you're looking to work on, bounce ideas around and get advice and insights from your peers. The other thing that I'm quite excited about with Marketing Talk is that I would really love this to be a place where marketers can hone one of the most important but daunting skills of thriving in a marketing career, which is presenting and public speaking. It does get easier with time and practice, so I would love for this to be a place where someone can get their first experience of public speaking, be that a 5-10 minute power talk about something that you've learned, or a full session like the ones that we will have today. So if you've been thinking about doing a presentation, but you're just not sure where to begin, or looking for a place to get started in a less intimidating environment, please do get in touch with me via LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you. On the topic of LinkedIn, we will be launching our Marketing Talk LinkedIn group after this event, where we will keep the discussion going in between events. There'll be about every 6 weeks or so. So plenty of time for us to get to know each other in the meantime there, where we can also share links and resources and other campaigns that we're working on. So on the next slide, we have our agenda. And I'm delighted to have two very, very exciting speakers for everyone today. So our first will be our keynote from Jess Stephens, who is a 2-times entrepreneur and a chief marketing officer. Then we will have a fireside chat with Sam Garrity, who is CEO of a really exciting agency here on the South Coast called RocketMill. I'll be asking Sam a few questions about the lessons he's learned through his career and what he looks for when he's hiring, which is really timely right now. We'll close out with a bit more info about the LinkedIn community so that you know where to go to join it, and a save the date for our next event. Before we jump into Jess's talk, which is all about knowing your customer, which is one of the most important things that a marketer could ever learn, I'd want to introduce Steve Rackley and Silicon Brighton, which is an absolutely brilliant initiative down here in Brighton, who have really made this event and this community possible. So over to you, Steve, to tell us a bit more about Silicon Brighton.
Hi everyone. Following on from Catherine, just want to add just a massive thanks to you all for joining us today for the first Marketing Talk meetup. When we started Silicon Brighton just 9 months ago, we had a vision, and that was to drive tech growth in Brighton. But to be honest, we didn't really have much of a strategy, and we certainly didn't have any idea how it would evolve. What we did know is that in Brighton, we have a home absolutely buzzing with creativity, collaboration, entrepreneurialism, social responsibility, great transport links, amazing universities, and some truly incredible track records of business successes. And we also knew what we wanted to address. We were fed up with seeing thousands commute to London. We were pretty annoyed that companies felt they had to leave Brighton to scale up. We were frustrated that investors weren't taking notice of us, and we were really dissatisfied that the current meetups and in turn opportunities for personal development were not being attended as well as those up in London. But we didn't really have a plan of how to address this. We went with a gut feeling that if we could just help facilitate the bringing together of the great people in this city, in turn, great stuff would happen. So we started by organising digital focused events, and people came, lots of people. This success led us being able to help existing groups grow their numbers. Today marks another brilliant result of the project, where we get to help form new groups. Now, cards absolutely on the table. What I know about marketing, you can write on a fag packet. But I do know a fair bit about employment. One of the biggest obstacles we face in our career journeys is lack of support. It's support and encouragement that we really need in order to move forward in our careers. So when Catherine explained to us about the challenges that she had faced in her marketing career, the same challenges many others face, with a lack of a support structure around them, we knew we had to do something to help. This is what we're about. Helping our city achieve the potential we all know it has had for so many years now, and do that by supporting each other. Now, I can see everyone from where I am. We have not just got a huge amount of junior marketeers on the call today. We've got many from outside the industry who are really keen to develop marketing skills. But we've also got some of the most experienced marketing staff our city has to offer. I implore you to please connect together and support each other within the group. Together, if we all continue to support each other, we will develop further skill sets in the city and eventually have Brighton fully highlighted on the digital world scene. Now, I'll leave you shortly to learn something about marketing from the professionals. But just before, I would just like to say that if anyone watching is keen to explore further how they can contribute to Silicon Brighton, please reach out. There is a tremendous amount of expertise here today. We are not asking anyone to stand up and share company secrets, but we are asking whether you have some knowledge or expertise or experience that you are willing to share for the benefit of our local industry. We would include contact details in the follow-up to this event, and I hope you very much enjoy the session and take something away from today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve. So I'm delighted to now welcome Jess Stephens, our keynote speaker. So Jess is someone that I was lucky enough to work with in a previous role and has been a huge inspiration for me. When I talk about the brilliant people who have been role models in my own career, Jess is right at the top of that list. So delighted to have her here today. She'll be sharing insights and tactics for you to deepen your understanding of one of the most fundamental aspects of great marketing, which is, of course, understanding your customer. Thank you so much for joining us, Jess, and over to you.
Thank you, Catherine. That's a very lovely intro. And also thank you, Steve. I'm massively inspired by your vision at Silicon Brighton, so thank you for sharing that. Now I am going to attempt to share my screen. PowerPoint. Optimize screen for video clip. Yes. Share. Are we there? I'm going to assume that's a yes from everyone. Okay. Thank you again for having me here. Normally when I do these kind of talks, I can see everyone. And I know if people are engaged because like if they're looking up and not into their phones, good sign. If they've lifted their phones up and taken a picture of my slide, then you're there, you're with me. So I can't see you do that today. So please do leave notes in the comments or follow me on Twitter at Jess Stephens and send me a little camera emoji where you would have taken a picture of my slides if they were of interest. So who am I and why should you bother listening to anything I have to say? As Catherine kindly said, I have been an entrepreneur twice, starting 2 Brighton-based startups, I should add, that have both successfully exited. I was listed in Management Today's 35 women under 35, which I did at the age of 34 years and 11 months, so just in the nick of time. And currently I am CMO of Kit & Kin, the eco baby brand, which was co-founded by Emma Bunton. So yes, technically Baby Spice is my boss, and she's a very wonderful person all round and is a great leader, showing off our brand and all of its eco responsibility that we have there. I also thought, just to round it out, I should share with you some of my absolute failings that I've had throughout my career, because there have been many. And so here are some choice ones. I once emailed more than 500,000 people with first name in the subject, first name ***, bracket. That was great. I once spent £20,000 on an SEO content campaign, not link buying, just creating an asset to get links that delivered less than 10 links. Even if you don't work in the SEO space yet, I can assure that you can see that's probably not a good return on investment. And when it launched, I actually said Instagram would never work. So yes, I have had my share of failings, but hopefully it just makes me better in the long run. You fail, you improve, and you carry on. So on to theory of mind, the topic I want to cover today. Here is something, it's actually a psychological principle that those in developmental psychology will be familiar with. And here's the test. Sally has a black box and Anne has a white box. Sally has a marble, although it looks more like a basketball to me, but it's a marble, and she puts that into her black box. Sally goes off for a walk. Don't worry, the drum was about to increase here. Anne takes the marble out of Sally's box, the sneaky thing, and puts it into her box. So Sally comes back and she wants to play with her marble / basketball. Where will Sally look for her marble? Now, I think most people on this call will identify that Sally will look in the box she left it in because she hasn't seen what's happened in between. She was out of the room. But if you ask a human of 4.5 years or younger, they might answer, Sally will look in the white box because they have not yet developed theory of mind to understand how Sally might be thinking. So what exactly is theory of mind? It is the ability to attribute mental states, beliefs, intense desires, emotions, knowledge, and so on to oneself and others. Essentially, the idea that I'm a person, you are a person, and we both have a differing view on the world. Theory of mind is necessary to understand that others have beliefs, desires, intentions, and perspectives that are different from one's own. So for marketers in particular, I think for those of us who work in the digital space especially, I think that we have a lack of theory of mind. Theory of mind actually grows empathy. And I think that sometimes in the way we approach what we do, we see consumers and customers as numbers, we see them as trends, and we forget to unpick and unpack the customer, the person that's underneath all of that, and all of their beliefs, wants, and desires. We fail to apply theory of mind. So what I'm going to show in this talk is how we can do that and how we can do it day to day. So it's a practice that we never forget and we keep going with. Question for you, how long does it take to win an Oscar? The actual shortest time on screen anyone has ever spent is about 5 minutes and 40 seconds, someone in the 70s. But Anne Hathaway, in this case, won her Best Supporting Actress Oscar in 15 minutes for playing the role of Fantine in 2013's Les Mis. Now, she had such an impact in such a short time because what she did is access, using theory of mind, she accessed the character Fantine's super objective. So super objective is a term that actors use when they say, what's my motivation? What they're saying is, what's my super objective? Not just for this scene, but for my character's whole view on their whole world. So what Anne Hathaway did in this scene was to not be like, okay, Fantine's quite sad here, I'm going to show sad. She dug deep and felt all that tragedy of Fantine's story. She felt all that guilt about her daughter. And she manifested that into this incredible performance that was very, very moving. I mean, whatever you think about Anne Hathaway and indeed the director of this film, I don't think you can argue that this wasn't a great performance. It was incredibly emotive. And so that's, we have to all do the Anne Hathaway work to dig through that theory of mind and then find that super objective for each of our customers. So let's apply this theory of mind to our marketing. I think probably a lot of people on this call, whether you're students or already working in the industry, you probably will have heard of the idea of features and benefits. Another way to think about it is we say, sell the light, not the light bulb. So the light bulb's the feature, the light's the benefit. And I think most brands kind of stop at that level. They stop at showing off the benefits of their product. But the very best marketing, whatever stage of the funnel it is through, will actually use theory of mind, find the super objective, that real driving force that drives your customer and their desires and delivers them a transformation. Because ultimately, all of us in our lives, we want to improve, we want to move forward. And so there will be a transformation, whether you're a B2B marketer, a B2C marketer, whoever you are, there will be a transformation that you can find by digging in, using theory of mind to find their super objective of what they really want. I will add here, you might have heard of Simon Sinek's The Golden Circle, and he talks about how people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And this is similar to that, except for I would argue his stance comes from the company kind of outwards, but I prefer to look from the customer inwards, because ultimately, if you know what the customer's problem is that you're looking to solve, you can convert them because you can offer them the transformation by solving that issue. So it's slightly different in that way. So let's look at some examples. At Kit and Kin, my current company, we are an eco baby brand, as I said. So the feature is an eco nappy with an extra absorbent core and a leak barrier. So what would be the benefit of that? Well, to our customers, to our parents, baby is kept dry for 12 hours. I think we can all agree leaky nappies are not a good thing. But what's the transformation that I actually have to offer our customers? And we're doing some work on this right now, where we're talking to customers about what a difference a leaky nappy will make to their day. And so if you can imagine the story of a parent, maybe she's a mum, she's just going back out into the world for the first time because coffee shops are open with their mask on, and she's taking her day out, and all of a sudden baby's nappy leaks. Oh no, I didn't prepare for this. I've only just put the nappy on. What a nightmare. Hang on a minute, I don't know what changing station's around. I certainly don't know if I can now go into certain shops because, you know, everything has changed. So that's now become from a slight inconvenience of a wet baby to ruining the whole day. And at the same time, baby's uncomfortable. Oh no, I'm a terrible parent. So the guilt comes in there as well. So her super objective in that stage is, I just want to feel like a better mum. Another parent said to me, the worst thing is when the nappy leaks and you haven't noticed. And so baby's sat there in wet nappy for ages. And the guilt, again, that they feel is absolutely terrible. So the transformation that a fantastic nappy offers is not just that it's super cute, we're the only ones with animal designs on the back, but it doesn't leak. And that means that you get to spend more time with your baby and you can feel like a super mum. And ultimately, you don't end up with your own Fantine moment. I mean, that's quite extreme. Another benefit that we have that means that we can talk to super objectives is that most of our customers are parents who want there to be a habitable world for their kids to grow up in. I mean, I suppose we'd all want that, but these parents particularly, they're choosing an eco product on purpose. So this is a blog post that's done quite well, talking about how buying nappies can protect rainforest and support communities. And then this is one of our best, no, in fact, our best ever post, which was the reusable cloth nappy launch, where people can now switch up using reusable nappies and disposable nappies and know that each is an eco choice. This one is made from recovered fishing nets, so you're also protecting the ocean from that plastic waste. So we are talking right into that super objective of, I want to be a good parent and I want there to be a better planet for my children. And so I can choose to buy these products. It's a work in progress, you know. We will still have ads out there that I think hit the benefits mark and that kind of need to be dialed up to hit that transformation. But that's what it's all about, and that's what I'm going to talk more about today, about building it in as a habit. So next, I want to share an advert which I think is 10 out of 10 when we're talking about theory of mind, discovering super objective, and using that in an amazing way. So let's see what this little guy has to offer. Isn't that fantastic? I love him. So for me, the AA are not concentrating on your fixed car. They are concentrating on you getting back on the road, having a day out with your dog in the back window with his ears flapping in the breeze. I want to go there. there are so many good things about this advert. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I'd actually like to do a whole nother session on AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action, which the AA do throughout this advert, and also their branding of everything down to the radiator in the background being yellow. It's just fantastic. Next one, I want you to tell me, do you think that they use theory of mind to understand where their customer is at and find their super objective based on this new product that they are promoting? Let's have a look at this one. I'll do a poll at the end, by the way.
11 o'clock. Be strong, Nutella lovers. No need to let break time break you. Put an end to the mid-morning biscuit challenge. Forget digging deep, Dad on a train. If you love Nutella in a jar, here it is in a bar. New Nutella Be Ready. A crunchy shell baked to perfection, filled with delicious Nutella and sprinkled with puffed wheat Krispies. New Nutella Be Ready. Find it in the biscuit aisle.
Okay, this is where I want to see all of your faces, because I would just love to know what you think of that. You should see the poll on your screen now. With this ad, did they apply theory of mind? Did they discover a super objective for their end consumer and deliver them a transformation? I want to see what you said. Oh, I wish I could see your faces. Oh, I can see these results in live time. All right, it looks like we're getting a winner. 87% of you are saying, yes, they did apply theory of mind. I am shocked. I don't think they did. I don't think they did. And here, let me explain why I would have been a no vote. And actually, there's 17% of you now are saying no. I don't know if I've swayed you. I feel like I've never been on a train and seen a dad wrestle with a pot of Nutella and try and shove it back in his backpack. I've not seen that. I appreciate there are lots of people who love this product and would like to have it on the move, but I'm not sure if I realise they're trying to be a bit absurd to kind of get that comedy in it in terms of getting that attention. I would love to know, write in the comments why you think that they applied theory of mind. What I think this is a product-led campaign, and I think they wanted to get into the biscuit category, and I believe that that's where they've started from this campaign. But I would be very interested to see why you think they have. I mean, it is completely our opinions, so that's great. Thank you for joining in with that poll. Okay, I can share the results. There you go. 80-20 in the end. How do I get rid of it? It's not letting me progress. There you go. So I wanted to also cover some B2B web and Instagram ad examples, because I've been to many of these talks where people look at these massive, great big consumer brands who've got massive budgets and can spend it all on TV, or just massively integrated campaigns, including experiential. And I think, in my marketing past, well, hang on a minute, I don't have those level of budgets, and I'm not doing a TV ad in the next, 2 years. So let's look at some examples that are not TV ads. This is the accountancy software Xero. They're doing some landing page testing at the moment, and you can see that they're actually toying with this theory of mind super objective question. And this is one of their examples: online accounting software that makes doing business beautiful. I like it because, yes, I want to make business beautiful rather than clunky and difficult and hard work. But I actually think that they've hidden something that could lead to a super objective down here. Put time-consuming tasks on autopilot, they say at the end of that paragraph. Now that, to me, is a springboard, is a benefit springboard in which they could have got to a transformation. Because if you put time-consuming tasks on autopilot, that means you have more time to do the things that actually drive the growth of your business. It means more time to spend with your customers, more time to deliver strategy. So I would have flipped that. So I give that a 6 out of 10. I absolutely love this example. This is essentially their Instagram ads agency, and I've seen there's a few agencies on the chat. They're American, and they don't have a product to, they don't have a software platform to sell these Instagram ads, but they have productized their offering. And so they've identified their segment. You're going to be an e-commerce customer that you want to get to $100,000. So you'll be a startup, $100,000 a month in record time. So it's not just quickly. They know you want to do it in record time. You want to, if you're a startup, you want to be the unicorn. You want to go into the stratosphere before everyone else while being extremely profitable. That's a fantastic headline. And again, I wish I had more time because I could go into all of these steps that they use, apply and get a price, and 4 spots left this month. There's urgency in there. This is a really, really good site, snapic.io. And everything they do is talking to the super objective of that startup founder or that startup marketing director. Now on to some of the examples that are not so good. So to prove how prevalent stopping at features and benefits is, this is literally from last night. I went on my Instagram and did screenshots of some of the ads that just didn't hit the mark. This is 5 ways to make your contact center customer centric. As you can tell by the title of this talk, I love customer centricity, and yet I'm not clicking on that. I'm sorry if anyone on the call works for InfoBit, take it as a learning moment, but this is a channel strategy dressed up as a customer strategy, because someone's read, if you write a listicle of 5 ways to blah, 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 you will get click-throughs on Instagram. This has started from a channel point of view, not from a customer point of view. And they've identified me because clearly I'm in the marketing and customer arena. So they've got the segmentation right, but without using theory of mind and finding that super objective, they've missed the mark. Another example, working remote and still using Dropbox or Google to drive, manage digital assets, you're doing it wrong. Brand folder. Ooh, I'm not sure that these guys even hit feature here. And what's the super objective that they're trying to tap into of mine, that they want me to feel shame? I mean, it might work. There are some examples of negative marketing that might work, but yes, I think again, an opportunity missed. Again, this was literally 3 ads in succession that I saw on my Instagram last night. And this one actually makes me quite sad. My partner is a type 1 diabetic, and he has a sensor in his arm that monitors his glucose. This is actually a life-changing product, because if we apply this on top of his sensor, it can send an alarm to me so that when his blood drops, to really low, so he needs some sugar, I can be woken up in the middle of the night, for example. And yet the text they use here in the caption is, Meow Meow is a smart Libra reader, auto-send glucose data to your smartphone or smartwatch. That's not the transformation. The transformation is, I can sleep soundly at night knowing that if he has something dangerous happen during the night, my phone will wake me up and I can help him. And they do these for children as well. Imagine having that for your child. You can sleep soundly at night knowing that your child's blood sugar levels are never going to drop below a certain level. So a massive and sad missed opportunity with that brand. So let's put this into some action. Let's give you some takeaways of how you can apply theory of mind, discover that super objective, and then build your marketing campaigns around that. I think that so many campaigns start off as the first bad example did. They start off with the who and the what to say, and they just miss out this how they feel, because I think we think that information is not available to us. And so we apply an availability heuristic saying, this is the information I have, I'm just going to work with the best I can, and off I go. But I'm going to argue and show you that finding out how they fail and finding out the super objective using theory of mind is easier if you continuously apply it. So let's start with who they are. You should have a demographic of your customers. You should be able to know what media they consume, where they hang out, who they interact with, and where else they shop. And that is because not just for targeting, which with a lot of new platforms, targeting is actually becoming less important to do manually because the platform does it for you, but actually it's also to identify who you need to talk to find out what the super objective is. Your segment should have a size and it should have a monetary value, so then you will know how much of your segment you have already captured in your customer base. And Mark Ritson always says, if in doubt, go for those with the biggest pockets, so choose a segment who've got the most money. How do they feel then? How do we unpack this? What are their fears? What are their loves? What does their average day look like? What does success look like? And what do they really, really want? I didn't actually mean for that to be a Spice Girls reference, but there you go, it happened. A couple of ways in which you can do this. The example on the left there is a clothing company called On Loan. And when you log into their customer area, they have live chat, which I think is it's intercom that powers that live chat. And straight under that live chat, they have integrated a survey, which I believe is a type form survey. And that's an always on initiative. And this survey is fantastic because it's not just an NPS, Net Promoter Score, on a scale of 0 to 10, how likely are you to recommend us? It actually is more about what do your friends say when you're wearing an outfit from us? And they really get into that emotion of it. And as I say, it's always on. And so they must be collecting tons of qualitative data all the time. So I was really impressed by that. The next one on the right, the old phone call. I pick the phone up and I speak to customers. In my previous work, I would get on live chat and chat with customers. And from those insights, those qualitative insights, I have gained more important knowledge that has powered really good campaigns than doing tons of kind of very data heavy work across thousands of your customer base. Because when people answer a survey, they're not always answering the truth. And so when you speak to customers, you get something a little bit more real out of them. So what I do is I split this up into, I talk to some of our top customers, I talk to some of our average, and I talk to new customers. And I find out what their fears, worries, why they bought us, why they would recommend us, what a leaking nappy means to them. And I am the CMO, and I am not too busy to do this. So I think at whatever level you are, this is something that you should be involved in. I've worked with lots of other marketers in a mentorship and consultancy capacity. And I would say about 2 times out of 10, those marketers say, yes, I'm in regular contact with my customers. Your customer service department should be your best friends. That is an absolute fountain of knowledge for you. And so please put that into your routine. Another little hack here, you can go to your reviews, and there are tools that for free that can scrape all of those reviews, and there are also tools for free that you can put into a word cloud. When you do that, you can discover the concepts and themes that are most important to your customers, who might be your best, and you could probably mix them out by bad reviews and good reviews. What really matters to those customers, and what really matters when it goes wrong. So what do you have to avoid? Another point here, why not do this for your competitor sites as well? It doesn't take that much time, and it's a great source of information. Going back to those guys in the US that I love, Snapic, they're, as I say, B2B business. They very cleverly use, again, it's type form here, and they use it through their lead capture process. They ask a series of quite in-depth questions, not just what's your budget and what's your job role. They really try and get into the nuts and bolts of your business. What's your revenue goal in your next 6 months? That's not just for qualification purposes to say whether they want to work with me or not, but it's also by the time that they do, a salesperson does speak to me, for example, they have all this information about what's really driving our business goals and what we're trying to achieve as a business. Actually, there's one more example I haven't got a screenshot for, but you can do this in your CRM as well. So if you capture a lead, instead of just sending kind of marketing information saying, this is why you should buy us, this is why you should buy us, whether you're B2B or B2C, why not put in a survey during that process and try and find out more about what that, why that lead came to you in the first place. This is great if you can do one-click updates in email. So if you click one thing in the email, they're record updates. So I think tools like Klaviyo, which we use, the email CRM tool, will do that for you. And then you can segment in your CRM system people who answer that question in different ways and relate to them differently and talk to their super objective differently. So as promised, I wanted to talk about how we make this into a process that's as innate in us as mindfulness or weightlifting, something that we're going to repeat over and over again. This book is such a great book. It really had a huge impact on my life. It's not just a sort of business book, it's really more about your whole life and how you can break habits and build good ones. And one of the concepts in it is about habit stacking. So if you get up at a certain time every day and then you have your coffee and then you do this and do that, you build in the good habits into that routine so that they're just so naturally in there, you don't even have to think about it. And so the same can apply to our working week. If you truly want to find out more about your customers, use theory of mind, discover that super objective, you need to build it into your weekly working practice. So let's say week 1, you run a survey. Week 2, you analyze the results of that survey. Week 3 is when you're making your customer phone calls. Week 4 is when you compare the survey results to your customer phone call results. So every week on a given day, whether it's your Monday afternoon or whatever it is, you're building in that habit of always listening to your customers and using these different methods to get different kinds of feedback to understand how you can deliver them that transformation. So we now know who they are. We now know they're super objective. We've used theory of mind. What are we going to say to them? We're back to features, benefits, and transformation. We have to be harsh on ourselves with everything that we put out, whether it be a website headline, an Instagram advert, or indeed a very expensive TV campaign. Am I delivering that transformation? I think there's some nuance to be found here as well. Along the funnel. We've talked a lot really here today about awareness campaigns, but you can apply this transformation throughout the funnel. So example at Kittenkin, once maybe someone's visited our site 2-3 times and we're now kind of in the conversion stage, we might push more the idea of free delivery, over sort of the leaking nappy example or the rainforest example I gave earlier on. But we can still talk about transformation when we're saying free delivery, because free delivery means I don't have to go to the supermarket. Not having to go to the supermarket means more time with my baby. So you can see if you apply this kind of layer of thinking over everything at every stage of the funnel, you get to some really sophisticated marketing messaging. A final book recommendation from me. When you are creating campaigns, there's been some talk in the marketing community about how optimization is just kind of finding small incremental gains and will never actually get you the big gain. My view is slightly different. I think that you should be optimizing the engine and you should be finely tweaking that so that you've perfected the way from top of funnel through to conversion. You've got a method that works every time. And then I think that marketers we're quite disposed to want to do the new thing every time. I think the trick is that once you've optimized it, to actually repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And this is what this book is all about. This chap talked about how Dyson created the Dyson Hoover through doing hundreds and hundreds of prototypes until he created the perfect Hoover. It's a great book, and I took loads of ideas out of it to apply to my marketing. So what have we learned today? I think we all have an idea of what theory of mind is. I think we know that Sally is looking in the box in front of her for her marble/basketball. We know what a super objective is, that ultimate thing that drives beyond, I want to buy this product. What transformation is that product going to bring to me? So we've talked about features, benefits, and transformation. And then we've talked about building that customer understanding in as a habit into our weekly marketing practice. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening. And let's see if there are any questions.
Thank you so much, Jess. That was fantastic. I certainly learned a lot. We've had a couple of questions come through, so let's start getting into them. And if anyone does have any other questions that they want to ask that haven't yet been covered in the Q&A, we've got some time now here with Jess, so please don't be shy. So the first question that's come through is around, I guess, auditing a piece of communication to find out whether you are really hitting that super objective. And I imagine this is something that would be particularly relevant when you're just starting out in this practice. As marketers, we are very trained to go features, benefits, and it's a mindset shift to move to that third step. So when you are auditing a piece of communication that you or a member of your team has created, do you have a checklist or a set of criteria that you look for to determine whether it is hitting on that transformation moment?
Yeah, so during the during the actual creation process, so we've actually just done some new Instagram stories ads, and I got them, and I was like, these are great. And then a week later, I put them away, and I looked at them again. I was like, they haven't reached that third step. They haven't done it. And so, put some time after your creation, I think, and it's kind of a version of the Hemingway "Kill Your Darlings," like step away from it, so you can see it. Whether you're writing it yourself or working with copywriters, I would build in some time for that review stage. But then it might be a bit of an obvious answer, but definitely show a selection of customers. I'm lucky enough that I've got some go-to customers that I can just contact out of the blue and say, hey, what do you think of this? Because of my practice of speaking to customers. And so I try to build up as much as I can customers in different profiles as well. Mm-hmm. So, for example, some of our customers absolutely adore our designs, and they love the fact that baby can run around in that nappy with a little design on the back, and they don't have to put them in clothes for the rest of the day. So that kind of parent might be different from, well, actually 70% of our customers say they choose our nappies because of the sustainable materials. So I would want to show a piece of creative that I was about to spend a lot of money on to both that person and those 70% who would really want to lead with the eco credentials. So having that bank of customers, and believe me, when you speak to them, people want to help other people, and they want to feel like their opinion matters. So having that panel to speak to, I think, is invaluable. And again, it doesn't matter whether you're the marketing assistant or the CMO, you should be speaking to your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that I attended a really interesting webinar actually last week, which is around how sales and marketing can work better together. And they were talking about how salespeople, it's so in their nature to just pick up the phone and kind of not be shy. But as marketers, we're such a step removed from that, and it can be quite daunting actually to just pick the phone up. But once you start doing it, it becomes so valuable. But I remember us doing it a couple of times. It's quite scary. But,
yeah, it is at first. But once you get over that hurdle, people I think assume that they went into marketing because they didn't want to be salespeople and pick up the phone. But honestly, it's encouraging as well. It makes you fall back in love with your product every time it happens. When I speak to one of our subscribers who buys our nappies, our wipes, our skincare, our clothing, and has done for the last 2 years, I just, it refreshes my enthusiasm for the brand every time.
Yeah, fabulous. Got some great questions coming in, so I'm going to jump into them. One that's just caught my eye, which I think is fantastic, from Veronica. Big fan of the theory of mind. How do you ensure you differentiate from competitors when both are targeting the same super objective?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The same goes for the segment as well. You could actually be targeting exactly the same segment as a competitor. So now we're getting down to differentiation. And one of the things that I would argue is definitely hire a good copywriter. I think that so many marketing departments skimp on the creative, so skimp on designers and skimp on copywriters. I would say those are two essential hires, because I think it's Rory Sutherland actually who says, creative can, eclipse strategy. And can eclipse, however much data you want to provide on a segment. Creative and really communicating that transformation can outweigh all of that. So there is definitely still a place in marketing for really, really great creative. I would actually say that, especially in the world of social ads, if you do Facebook advertising or Instagram advertising or Twitter or whatever, because it's so accessible, I think some of those earlier examples I showed were really failings of creative. And so because you can spend a couple of $100s and get a campaign live, I think often the quality can suffer. So if you are a marketing director or a marketing executive, make a case for having, even if they're freelancers, great designer and great copywriter at your hands.
And with those designs, and maybe when you're putting that business case together to be able to get that budget, do you have any tips on how best to test and prove the value of this higher level of messaging?
Yeah, I mean, so it can be difficult when taking a new direction, because Catherine, in fact, as we've both experienced, sometimes if you've optimized the engine already kind of on the old system, it can take a little while for the new one to look good. So you're actually asking your financial director or whoever to take a leap of faith with you into this new way. One thing that I've seen work really well is people trying out creative in unpaid channels and seeing which creative is responded to best in those channels, and then switching that into your paid. So only when you've got kind of a bit of proof, switching it in. Actually, the point I forgot to make in my presentation, one of the best ways to, and it answers the competitor question, to really differentiate your theory of mind differently to someone else's is to use your own customer social proof. So use what that customer has been saying about you, you know, oh, these nappies are amazing. They kept her dry for several hours and we went out to the park and had an amazing time. And, you know, using that social proof that belongs to you as a brand is a great way of differentiating. And again, you can see that working before you put it into a paid channel, because, you know, it will get good responses on your website or on your unpaid social channels. Yeah,
that's a great tip. I'm a big fan of testing new messaging or creative in email, because not only is it such a efficient channel, you know, 10 minutes after launch, you know, if your database is engaged enough, you've got your answer.
That's a great tip. Yeah,
brilliant. Okay, lots of questions coming through, some looking more broadly, I guess, from marketing specifically. So thank you, Angela, for your question. How do you ensure your customer, the theory of mind and the focus on the human of the customer is always the key focus, not just of the marketing team, but the entire company? You know, so much of growth is data driven, it comes from the product. How do we as marketers, particularly more junior marketers, instill this, I guess, cultural shift of going beyond the features, you know, it's fast or it does this, and make that leap into being more focused on our customer?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it used to be that sales and marketing were the departments that butted heads all the time, but now I find that it's often marketing and the finance department that are like doing that. And I think that actually you gain the higher ground if you are the one that always, like a broken record, brings it back to the customer. And you can do that if you've applied the habit and you have week upon week upon week of customer contact and customer data. You can actually provide the evidence to say, this is why we should be doing it. I would say that marketing is, sorry to everyone just starting their career, marketing is one of the easiest challenge roles on a board, because everyone sees marketing. Not everyone sees, for example, technical code. So the CTO doesn't often get challenged, but marketers, I'm seeing Catherine nod, and I bet there are some nods happening on the other side of some screens. Marketers get challenged the most. So if you kind of have to bring all your tools to the table if you want to respond to that challenge. And the best tools to have is look at this customer data, look at this customer data, look at this qualitative data from a customer. I've spoken. Do you know what politicians do it? I was in Brighton and I met Jess, who was a digital marketer. Politicians do it because they know that individual story will land with the listening audience. So yeah, be armed with your customer stories is my answer to that one.
Mm-hmm. Great. And a lot of your examples focused on advertising. Would you say that this is something that should play out across all of your copy? So the example in the question that we've got, thank you, Mark, is, you know, would you look at rewriting landing pages, for example, to be focusing on these super objectives?
Absolutely. So if you look at Xero at the moment, which was one of my examples, as I said, they're clearly doing some A/B testing on landing pages. So Google Xero, and they've got, I think it's a PPC campaign that takes you into one landing page. And then if you go through organic, you land on another. And so you can see that they're trialing out this messaging. And so one was the one I showed you, it was making it beautiful. And the other one was, what was it? No, can't remember. It was a different super objective that they were talking to. And so yes, through something like Google Optimize, using A/B testing on these kind of messages, 100% be doing that. And also through your CRM, you know, if you could, like, so I love the CRM tool Klaviyo, the email tool. You can do flows. So someone signs up, 5 days later, they get something else. If they do a one-click update and update their profile, they go into another flow. And then at all of those stages, you can A/B test the creative, and it lets you know which one's won. So 100%, I think that the nuance of this can be applied throughout the funnel and across different forms of marketing.
Mm-hmm. And one more question on creative. Someone's asking about the effectiveness of video versus photo, and I guess how best to make the decision of what type of creative to use in your campaign. And I suppose one for me is how, if you're not using words or voice in video, so if you're using an image, how are you reaching the super objective without being sort of really literal of someone sort of celebrating? How can you be more subtle with your imagery?
Yes, I mean, that's a good question. Whether sort of video versus image, I mean, again, I would come back to testing. We've got tests running at the moment of video versus static ads in Instagram, and that's something we'll constantly be testing as people grow and act differently on the channel. But how you use imagery, I mean, I think that AA example did it brilliantly. I was getting a feeling and an emotion from that dog made out of weird wool before they even put that. It was so copy light, actually. Love that feeling, ? We'll get you back on the road. I just love that ad so much. It's so good. So yes, I think that you can use imagery. In fact, they say a picture tells 1,000 words, but perhaps imagery is the way to go to explain what a feeling, what a transformation you might be delivering.
Great. And one more on marketing more generally. So a question that's got a few thumbs up from Nisha, thank you, is looking more broadly at marketing and thinking about the new channels and how we don't get left behind as marketers as these new channels appear. So we've got a channel like TikTok, for example, which has exploded in popularity over the last few months, particularly during lockdown. Is it essential for a marketer to get familiar with a channel like that to avoid getting left behind?
Yeah, so I would say as long as you're eating your greens and starting from a customer point of view and not from a channel point of view, then yes, absolutely, we should be understanding what are the models, what are the payment models, how are they going to differ from what Facebook did with Facebook and Instagram. We should be familiarizing ourselves with that. But for me, it's all about segment obsession. So my segment is parents, and they're not on TikTok at the moment. So I'm not spending my days trying to figure out if how I should be advertising on there. It just doesn't apply to my segment. If I was marketing, I don't know, what do kids like these days? Computer games. I might be on I don't know what kids. I have a stepdaughter of 15, and I don't know what teenagers want. Their iPad. Then I would be obsessing about what's the strategies for TikTok, but it has to come from a customer point first, not a channel point.
Mm-hmm. And how about? I mean, you mentioned at the beginning of your talk that when it first came out, you didn't think Instagram would take off. Do we as marketers, even if they're not right for our segment, but thinking about our career, 10, 20 years time, should we be familiar with all of these channels in case the time comes that we are producing content for them in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I heard someone compare it to, marketing used to, people wanted to be in the pub and on beer mats because that's where people were hanging out, and especially drink manufacturers. So if TikTok is the pub of the future, then yes, you want to figure out how to put your beer mat down there. I want to defend myself on the Instagram point. They launched it. He actually, the original founder had an app called Bourbon, and it was very much focused on the check-in facility because the idea of checking in was really new. It was very fancy in 2010. And so Instagram actually launched on the basis of, you can see me taking this picture in this location. And then they did a slight pivot when they realized everyone just liked the filters. So that's when it became the kind of photography app. So I was very down on I don't want everyone to know where I am and exactly what I look like where I am. So that's why I was like, this will never work. They'll never become anything. So yeah, keeping an eye out for knowing when to change your mind on something and saying when you've been wrong, and keeping an eye out on the growth of the platform, so that if it's becoming significant, yes, you should have an understanding of how that platform works.
Fantastic. Jess, thank you so much. That's been incredibly insightful. Thank you everyone for your questions. If we didn't get a chance to cover off yours, my apologies, but do join the LinkedIn group after this, because we can keep the conversation going. There's clearly plenty for us to talk about in this area. And yeah, thanks again, Jess. I really appreciate it.
So much.
Great. And now we welcome Sam Garrity for a fireside chat. Thank you so much for joining us, Sam.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, very good. That was a wonderful presentation. There was so much value in there for everyone.
I totally agree. I'm very glad we're recording this so I can watch it back and make lots of notes. So before we get into the meat of our discussion, which is going to be around advice and experiences that you've had, it'd be great if you could just give us a little bit more about you and your background.
Yeah, no problem. I'll start at the beginning. I was born in Liverpool, and I in fact grew up, we moved to London like half the city did in the 80s, and I grew up on a very unglamorous council estate in South London. My form as a student was that I was pretty decent conceptually, but I never really applied myself. So it was no real surprise as I left university in the second year. And that's when my media career really began. I started work on the journalistic side of things, so on the editorial team at the Daily Express newspaper, and then swiftly moved across into advertising and marketing with stints at the Daily Mail and the Express newspaper group over a 10-year period. And it was wonderful. As part of a senior team launching a national newspaper, we launched a national magazine. It was great, but I kind of always had this burning desire to go it alone. So after about 10 years of doing that, I joined forces with my brother and we launched our own agency. And it started really with just the two of us. It's always been sort of funded via our own organic growth. And like I said, 10 years ago, we were targeting these tiny, small businesses such as plumbers. And we were helping them, I suppose, interact with customers online rather than by the yellow pages. And today, our business has grown to be one of the UK's biggest independent agencies, working with some of the world's biggest brands. And it's really been quite the journey.
Fantastic. So I'm sure there's plenty of advice and learnings that you can share based on that fantastic progression that you've had. If you could pick one piece of advice that you wish you could have given yourself when you were first starting out in the industry, which a lot of people on the call today will be, what would that be?
Yeah, I'm not going to choose something marketing or comms related, if that's okay. I probably would have advised myself to understand what imposter syndrome was and to equip myself to work with it better. Now, I'm hoping this is relevant for some of us, but for me, it's been a theme personally in my career. And it's something, honestly, I still even work through it today. So I'll be asking myself, I've got to make sure I meet the mark today, deliver value to your audience. And it's something that can actually get the best out of me, but often it can inhibit somebody's progress or it can slow you up. So I feel like life for me would have been easier and would have moved quicker had I overcome imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome is something that we've heard a lot about, particularly over the last year or so, really. I think it's come to light as something that a lot of people face, as you say. And before we dig into what it's sort of, how you've been affected by it or how you've overcome it, what specifically does it mean to you?
I'm glad you said to me, because I'm going to avoid the clinical kind of side of it and talk to you a real lay terms about what it means for me. In my career, what it meant is that I doubted myself at every single level. So I started at each new level by feeling like I was imposing, I was an imposter. Now, if we translate that, if you don't mind following me, to a computer game, where you start at each level, not sure if you're quite good enough. Then you sort of habitualize, you realize you can compete and the level becomes normal to you. You then succeed and potentially you kill the boss. Now, that's a computer game reference I'm advocating, I'm not advocating a mass murder as a form of getting on in your career. So you get promoted to that next level. And I suppose imposter syndrome then kicks in again. And this doubt can really inhibit your belief in your own ability. And it can be a very taxing thing to experience. So it ends up slowing you down. And a lot of people will let it fundamentally get in their way and it stops them realizing their full potential.
And how specifically have you then experienced that imposter syndrome in your career so far?
I felt it at every level, every job move, joining the Express, like I said, 20 years ago on the editorial floor with these illustrious journalists. And then setting up RocketMill at each stage, every promotion, even when we hold a massive event and do a talk at every single level. And one specific example, just to give you an insight, I remember when we moved the agency to Brighton and feeling we had new competitors that I personally really looked up to. They were bigger than us. They had big employer brands, huge clients, and the imposter feeling was pretty evident to me. I wasn't sure I could compete with the execs at that particular level. So that's probably the most recent one where that was the next level for us maybe 3-4 years ago.
I can really relate to this as well. So as I mentioned in my intro, when I first joined my previous company, I joined as a marketing exec, a team assistant around four years ago. And I was able to work my way up the company and eventually became the head of marketing via a couple of sort of marketing manager jobs. And when you are in that situation where you're still working with people who had known you to be a marketing assistant, it's the imposter syndrome is, very, very strong, and you really have to kind of find it within yourself to just believe in yourself and be your own champion, really, which can be a really hard skill to learn. But it definitely is possible. I've been able to employ some techniques, and it would be great to hear what techniques you've been able to use to help overcome. It clearly hasn't held you back.
Yeah, that's very kind. Firstly, I'd say that we're good at talking about these things now. For the first 10 years of my career, maybe 15 years of my career, that wasn't the case. So for me, I never got coaching. And by the way, in our business, we have like a resident coach, and any of you can go on YouTube and see the talk on this. So I kind of share my story, and then this lady gives tips, Sarah, who's brilliant. So that's out there, and there's tons and tons of good coaching material. But for me, I had sort of an epiphany when reading an article by a chap called Oliver Burkeman in The Guardian. And he wrote this great piece that was titled "Everybody is Winging It All of the Time." And he explained throughout his career as a journalist, imposter syndrome was a theme for him. And he didn't really even articulate it as imposter syndrome, but he went on to explain how, as he graduated from local press through to national press, and he even worked with some of the world's most senior politicians, he kept expecting to meet the adults at each new area or each new level. So the truly competent people, but he never did. In his opinion, everybody was actually winging it most of the time. And he went on to share in that article what I feel was the most profound insight on imposter syndrome that I've ever heard. And it's a bit of a mouthful, but he said, we are all energetically projecting an image of calm proficiency, while inside we are improvising in a mad panic. Now, I'm going to try and translate that to how I translated it at the time. And for me, it was, don't judge how you feel on the inside against how everybody else is projecting on the outside. And I think that's something we all do too often. I think most of us are in the same boat. So I've always had that as a bit of an anchor in terms of if things get a bit choppy. And I also, just as a simple thing, I always record, even in my little day books, I record milestones, achievements, both personal and professional. And they give me a great sort of base, a feeling of perspective, a feeling of building something. When facing a new situation, it sort of puts that to light and makes me feel like I'm not such an imposter after all.
I love that idea, jotting things down and looking back at them. One of the things that I started doing for the first time ever this year was, right at the beginning of the year, I jotted down some personal objectives for the year, things that I really wanted to achieve that I hadn't, done before. And one of them was starting something like this. And here we are. There's something really, really powerful about jotting things down. And I think that really helps to build your confidence as well, because, it's you and your objectives sort of up against the world. I love that quote as well, around sort of being swan-like from the external perspective, but underneath you might be sort of madly scrabbling. Quick question that sort of comes to mind here is, do you have any feel for, I guess, when it's most appropriate to show this calm demeanor, and when you can just be human and honest and just say, look, I'm struggling here and I need help?
I think it's all about how safe the environment is. If it's funny, just relating both themes there of what you've talked about. If I think about where I see it quite often, imagine we're pitching for a client and there's 6 people going to talk throughout. The person last thinks that everybody else has done an amazing job and is super calm, when actually everybody's pretty on edge anyway. Would I want one of my team to, in that meeting, say, actually, this is really scary, I'm not feeling great, I'm unsure I'm going to produce my best work? Probably not. I would rather we did that in the safe environment when we practice and work together. So I think it's all about judging your environment, but being comfortable, being open with it, because there's, every business or every one of us has contacts or is surrounded by people with experience that have gone and walked and done this before. So I think the more you're open about it, the more you normalize it, because for you, Catherine, you said you look up to Jess. I'm sure at some point in your career, if you were to say to Jess, I'm having these feelings when I approach these situations, Jess would have been a great source of support and probably confide in you that she's had those same feelings. So I would say it's all about the environment. Yeah,
great tip. Thank you. And while you've established yourself in the industry, you've come a long way in various different sort of facets of the industry. What's the biggest challenge that you've faced sort of establishing yourself and how you overcame that?
Yeah, probably go into a couple of things. The biggest challenge, and one relevant for now due to the economic situation, was setting up RocketMill. We did this in the teeth of the credit crunch, so very similar to the economic uncertainty we face today. And we left, just to give you some context, we left established careers, Ben and I, who set it up, to take that leap. And on a personal note, my wife was pregnant with our first child at the time, Barnaby, and I sold my flat in Fulham to free up some funds and moved into my sister's loft to keep expenses down. So you can imagine how it felt. It's not an exaggeration to say at that point, I know it wasn't, but it felt like life and death. And there was plenty of setbacks along the way. So to put it simply, how we overcame that challenge was by sticking together, having a relentless belief in the value of what we were doing, what the mission was, and by not stopping. And I realised that this sounds so simple, but it really was our ability to run that marathon, not a sprint, to endure it, to keep going, and to not let that fire go out, and just keep pushing every day. We always talk about day one mentality, every day coming in, trying to make the agency a bit better every day. If we've got, look at the team now, there's 70 people doing that every day. That's how we overcame the challenges early doors. But if it's okay, Catherine, if we're okay for time, I'm just going to share with you another challenge that's even more topical, because COVID is obviously something we can all relate to. And as a marketing business, you can imagine we've spent 10 years building this up. Like I said, all organically. And as a marketing business, we're particularly vulnerable in terms of budget cuts in the current situation. So COVID felt to me like it presented real, genuine peril to our business. And when moments like this arise, I think it's really helpful to have some fundamentals in place to help guide you. What helped us recently when this started to really dawn upon us was our philosophy in terms of how we behave as a business to each other, to our clients, and to their customers. And it's something we call people first. Put simply, this is it allows us to really, I suppose, put our team first. We open board meetings, senior leadership team meetings, and so on, always talking about the team. We have core KPIs across the business where they come first. And it's this belief that if we inspire them, if we motivate them, if we're transparent with them, and if we share the spoils fairly, they go on to do the best work of their careers for our clients, who, of course, return that with loyalty and further investment. So bringing that back to COVID, when that dawned upon the UK, I was in conversations with exec level people outside of our business. And I was alarmed by some of the talk in terms of seeing it as an opportunity maybe to cut costs or to lose people that maybe weren't within your favor. Whereas having this philosophy, I think it gave us the chance to see an opportunity in a different type of light. So before the furlough scheme was announced, we guaranteed everybody's job. We felt basically that as people, as humans, they're going to have enough on their plate to cope with in the coming months, and we didn't want our business to be one that added to it. And the way the team went on and responded to that was honestly a very, very touching, very humbling. Their response, in short, has catapulted us as a business. We now have higher revenues than we've ever had. We're way more profitable than pre-COVID. And it's just been incredible, the unity and strength of the team, and the culture's been, it's kind of propagated through the digital world. Even though we're not together, I think we feel probably closer than we ever have been. So having these fundamentals, and we have a few of them, we have our philosophy, we have our strategy in terms of how we're going to beat the competition, and then our clear business goals. These are really fundamentals for me that allow you, as again, just to drop that anchor when things are challenging or choppy.
Mm. And how can this entrepreneurial spirit that you clearly have apply in all situations that marketers may find themselves in, even when the business that you work for isn't something that you yourself are running?
Yeah, I think I'll kick off on this just by saying a lot of people look at people that set up business and we get this businesses and we get this label as an entrepreneur. Mm. I'm probably the least entrepreneurial person you're ever going to meet. I'm pretty good at running a business. But yeah, Ben had a great idea. We took the leap together and we believed in it. So I would have just advised anyone who's thinking about it, don't get too hung up on, am I an entrepreneur? Oh no, that's those guys over there. Don't think like that. But I'm glad you've asked this question, and Jess touched slightly on it in her talk. For me, all marketers are entrepreneurs for their brands. I've got to be absolutely clear on that. They are tasked with seeking a competitive advantage. And today, if I look at where marketers are and the evolution of it, they've got more ability to do this than they ever have done. So previously, as Jess was saying, it was kind of debated whether marketers should work more closely with their sales teams. But today, due to the proximity and the volume of data and the access to that data that a marketer has, it's my belief that they sit firmly right at the center of a company. So if we look at it before, a marketer really was charged with building a brand and drumming up demand for a product or service. But today, because of the access to information a marketer now has, they're intertwined with sales. That's undoubted. A marketer also has the chance to entrepreneurially influence the product. They can go on and influence customer relations, and they can certainly therefore have an influence on operations. So for me, the marketer now sits at the fulcrum of an organization. They've never been more important. And so they simply must be charged with being an entrepreneur, or they're never going to win.
Mm. And very quickly before we touch on our last piece, which is around hiring, a question has popped up, which you started to touch on. So it'd be good just to cover off on this. We've got someone on the call who would love to start their own business and feels scared about it. And the question is, would you have gone it alone without your brother? And should they be looking for a business partner to get off the ground?
I'm going to answer this in a little bit of depth, if that's okay. Firstly, I believe, so from my first ever job, this sounds arrogant and please don't take it as this, I always thought I could do my boss's job better than them from the first day. So I had this burning desire. It wasn't really all ambition. It was just this belief that I could do it. I wanted and sought responsibility. And I believe that had Ben not approached me to set up RocketMill, I think eventually I would have done something. I don't know what it would have been, because I think the itch was too big. I had to scratch it. But if I could go on to answer it further about the benefits. Now, the benefits of having somebody next to you are obvious. You have a problem shared is a problem halved. You've got two brains attacking it, but you've got to make sure the fit is right. Now, what I was blessed with Ben is our skill sets are different. Our characters are different. We clearly identify as within different roles within the business. So we don't look like a family-run business. We're quite a corporate structure, and I think if you look at working with a family member, just if I may delve into that, that's either the best or worst thing you're ever going to do. It's either stagnant, there's no hierarchy, nobody can agree on anything, and because you can talk very directly to one another, it can be quite harsh. Whereas if you think about that same thing, you can talk directly to somebody, then a business that's well structured with family members can run so quickly and it can beat its competition with speed. But my advice would be, if you can find the right partner, then absolutely. But I wouldn't make that a deal breaker on going into business. There's so many great advisors around there and mentors that are there to help you. So you don't always need a permanent partner by your side.
Mm. great advice. Thank you. So let's touch on hiring. So this is a really timely discussion right now. We've probably got a few people on the call who are either looking for work during these challenging times or are maybe furloughed or thinking about the future. So you've grown your agency. What is it that you look for in people when you are hiring?
Firstly, just a quick note of encouragement for those of you that are potentially between roles or starting out during COVID. Don't be disheartened. There's so many businesses that are growing, so many growing sectors and companies therefore that need people. So I'm a big believer that, you know, talented people are going to be fine, they'll find roles. But just to give you an insight into what I do at RocketMill in terms of recruitment, as a rule, I always ask to meet people before we offer contracts. Before meeting me, the technical side of things is dealt with at an earlier stage. So first stage interviews, competency testing, that side of things. So I'm very much about the human, and I'm interested in two things. I always believe in keeping everything pretty simple. So the two things I'm interested in are, what's the raw processing power of that person? In short, are they intelligent? Are they super quick on their feet? And I want to know if they're a good human as well. So I ask myself whether they're going to add or subtract from our overall culture in that regard. And you can't hit the mark on one of them and just get the job. You've got to be, you know, you can't be super smart and subtract from our culture, and you can't be a wonderful human and not be super smart. As a simple rule of thumb, every client we engage, we work with, and every person that we work with, we view as a step towards or away from our overall goals, and those goals are commercial as well as culture, and they're both as important as one another.
Mm-hmm. One question that relates to this actually is there one thing you'd recommend that someone develops, highlights, or add to their CV to get them sort of through the door for an interview in the first place, particularly when looking at entry or mid-level marketing roles?
So the thing I'm interested in at RocketMill is this convergence of old world craft, so the traditional marketing and creative talents, with the digital and analytical skill set that's required. So thinking, we used to talk left brain, right brain. I quite like the kind of Accenture whole brain marketer. So I think I would like to see people that have digested a course from the likes of Mark Ritson on Marketing Week with his mini sort of marketing MBA, along with the type of base level analytical skills that you might get from Google on something like analytics. I'm talking entry level now, but if you bring those two things together, I'm going to be sat opposite somebody who technically knows how to analyze data and knows a bit about the most prominent platform out there, but can then apply some very basic marketing skills around strategy and comms, which I think, in my experience at the moment, I'm meeting too many people heavyweight digital that lack the traditional marketing talent. And the sad bit is that the traditional marketing talent starts to think they don't have a place in this new digital world, whereas I'm trying to build a business that unites those two things.
That relates really nicely actually to another question that we've just got time to cover, is who you look up to for marketing inspiration. A question for both of us. Mine was actually going to be Mark Ritson, so I'm glad you brought him up. I think he's brilliant. If anyone isn't familiar with the publication Marketing Week, Mark Ritson, he'll probably come out with a column every couple of weeks or so, and it's just like straight to the bone, straight talking, no, can't think of a word that's not swearing, no rubbish. If you're looking for sort of fluff-free, straight talking marketing analysis of kind of current situations and channels, I highly recommend Mark Ritson. How about you?
I'm going to follow on your theme. There's tons of people out there, but I'd go Dave Trott, because any book he's written is well worth reading. But it's the straight talking. He's a columnist in Campaign as well every week, but straight talking, no nonsense, easy to understand. He hates people talking marketing speak. So you could give his column to your mum and dad and they're going to get it. But it was funny listening to Jess talk through some of her processes. I remember listening to Dave Trott, and he was talking about what you need to do in an ad and how so many ads don't do it. And he said, you've got to get their attention, tell them what you want, and then tell them what's in it for them. And he said, so listen to this. He said, this is me asking for a cup of tea at home. And he said, Kath, Kath, Kath. That's his wife. So he's got her attention. She says, what do you want? He says, I want a cup of tea. And he says, and then he has to convince her, he has to tell her what's in it for her. So he says, if you get us a cup of tea, Kath, I'll put the bins out tomorrow. And it's that's the language. And so I mean, my team must get so annoyed with me because the amount of stuff that gets sent to me for our marketing or what's going out to clients, and I'm like, just simplify it down. Simplify it down. I think a big bit of advice maybe to end on is, I think this marketing is full of people, right? We all fall into marketing, and marketing is full of people that use complexity to pretend that they're intelligent. The smart people, they say it as it is. And marketers like you, Catherine, and Jess, they like nothing more than speaking to people who just keep it absolutely real and cut to the chase. So I think I'll just say to everybody, don't allow your insecurities or that imposter syndrome to make you bring out flowery language unnecessarily. Marketing's not complicated.
Such good advice. There was a time when I was first starting out in marketing where every email internally that I would send would be about this long, and it would be dear and kind regards, and I would so appreciate if you could please do this. And no one's got time for that. Just say what you need, be polite, and yeah, that's what gets you respect and kind of what gets the job done. Definitely. Thank you so much. That's been really insightful. I'm sorry if we haven't had a chance to cover off everyone's questions, but like I say, please jump on the LinkedIn group, which I'll come on to shortly, so we can keep the discussion going. And Sam, thank you so much. That's been so insightful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, if anyone if anyone watching wants to connect on LinkedIn and ask a question that maybe didn't get answered, then absolutely, I'll do my best to come back to you fairly quickly.
Fantastic, thank you. Right. So on to our just closing up slide then, which is just to say thank you so much to everyone who came and for your participation. We've had some really brilliant questions come through. Like I say, apologies if we didn't get to cover yours, but do connect afterwards. I'll start on the right. So we are establishing this Marketing Talk LinkedIn group, which will give us all a chance to get to know each other better, and in between events connect and talk and share stories and campaigns and links from the industry. So please do join. It's called Marketing Talk Community. We should be able to send you all out an email invite, but if you want to zap that QR code with your phone now, that should take you straight through to it. I look forward to seeing you there and getting to know you. And if you've enjoyed today's session, please save the date for our next event, which we are penciling in for the 18th of September, speakers TBC. If you have something in particular that you would like someone to cover, or if you would like to be the one to speak in any format, be that Q&A like we just did, a talk like Jess's, or a short talk, please let me know. I would love to have you. And I hope you all have a wonderful weekend in the sunshine. Thank you. And thank you again to our speakers and the team at Silicon Brighton. Thank you.